Paul Glazby, thank you so much for joining us again. It's been, I think, 3 or 4 years since that last interview that we did during COVID. It's been quite a while.
Yeah, it would be, yeah.
You see, so that's how long it's been in the back of our minds to get you to South Africa since that conversation. So, Paul, okay, so I have some questions for you from myself, and then I have some questions for you from some of our party goers. Okay,
Okay.
so I'm going to shoot now. So, since the last time we spoke in 2020, have you been actively DJing, or if you have, tell us about some of those gigs that you've done?
I've not played much, to be honest. This is Lily, by the way.
Lily's my daughter's name.
Oh, you got kids as well now.
Yeah, I've got two, and Brent's got two, but you'll meet them when
Right.
you're here.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, gigs. What have I done? Since last time we spoke, I think I'd played London Hard House Reunion,
Yeah.
over in Auckland. I've done a couple of gigs in Australia, I think. Oh yeah, I did a boat party in Sydney. I did a boat party in Sydney towards the end of last year.
Okay.
Yeah, I've not been doing much. There's not much that gets me excited enough to dust off the headphones these days.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's been quite a transition for you since, I suppose, actively traveling so much around the world to family life. And even for us over here, we took quite a long break, probably 10 years before we really picked up on the DJing and parties again. It seems like everyone has reached the age where their kids are old enough to start going out. And so the parents are now looking for, some party time. But then,
Yeah, well, I mean, when I play um, that London Hard House Reunion, or even the gig, the boat party, like, everyone's in the 40s and 50s
yeah,
now. It's just like
yeah, that
coming
makes
out for
sense.
one last blast.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's like for us. Yeah. So, and then how do you feel about traveling to other countries for gigs now that you are older and you have a family? Is it, like you say, there's not much that's happening that gets you really excited. So it must be something cool for you to
Yeah,
jump on a
yeah,
plane and travel to another continent.
yeah. That's right. I mean, yeah. I mean, I get not offers all the time, but there's a lot of things that I just yeah I don't do, just because with work and kids and a partner and like all that stuff, that there's plenty of reasons to just stay at home.
Yeah.
But your Studio 47,
Yeah.
that was the yeah, yeah,
That was the first one. Yeah.
yeah, and that's still, when people say your top three gigs that you ever did, that Studio 47 gig is still one of the top three.
Excellent.
So yeah,
Okay, great. So
it's one.
you're happy to come out to Cape Town for us?
Yeah,
Okay, great. So I just want people to know. So you've come out of active retirement for us to come solo to Cape Town again.
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
I
your
just hope
last,
all kids
yeah, your
come out and
last
say
trip
hello.
to, oh, sorry, man, I'm talking over you. Can you say again?
I was just saying, hopefully everybody comes out to say hi.
Yeah, look, the crowds aren't as big as they used to be, but we have a really good crowd and they're quite loyal and a lot of people are excited to see you.
Yeah.
So I think your last trip to Cape Town was in 2012. So it's been more than a decade since you've been out here. So
Yeah.
what are you most looking forward to when you come to Cape Town?
Oh, I mean, just the people, the vibe, yeah, like you guys. I mean, you guys always looked after me super well. So, yeah, it's just see if we
So,
can.
and the reason I ask is because I don't know if you remember. So every time you came out here, your favorite restaurant to go and eat at was called the Spur. I don't know if you remember.
Yes,
And the
yeah,
reason
I
was
do remember
because
that.
you couldn't believe how cheap it was to get such big steaks. Do you remember
I
that?
do remember that.
I think we went to Spur so many times. It's so funny, but it's still here. So we'll take you there when you come down.
Okay,
We have loads of them. And then,
excellent.
are you looking forward to seeing Brent?
Yes. Is he still? Is he still Brent, or is he?
He's
Is
not
he
the
calmed
Brent.
down?
He's not the Brent that you remember. He's calmed down a lot. He's also a dad. So, but he's very excited to see you. So
Okay.
he's very happy that we're bringing you down.
But if he's
Um,
taken down 5 or 6 levels, he'll still be full on, I'm sure.
No, he's calmed down. I would say 95%. So just yeah, expect a less party Brent, but still fun Brent.
Okay.
And then just with regards to the DJ, so some of those gigs that you did, so you were predominantly known as a vinyl DJ. That's the kind of era that we come from. So what's it like for you to have transitioned from playing on vinyl all the time at gigs to having to go into clubs or events now and it's just digital?
Yeah, it is weird. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it happened. It's not like you walk into a club one day and then all of a sudden everything's different. Like
Yeah.
it was. The CDs came in, and at first when we started using, before the Pioneer CDJs, we used to have the CD players that were like a wall mounted thing, and the pitch control, you
Yeah.
were sort of moving it up and down rather than backwards and forwards. It was
Yes, it was a
so
rack. Yeah.
yeah. But when we started producing, being able to do a track and then play it that night was a
Yeah.
big deal. Before that, we used to have to send off for acetates and wait for those to come back, and the whole process. Whereas being able to just go in the studio that night, you get to road test it. Next day, you can go back in the studio and needs a bit more bass or whatever. But like in a set, you'd have maybe one track that you'd play on CD. It's just the one that you'd done that week, and you'd play that. And I remember I used to sort of just get because the pitch control was so shady.
Yeah.
You'd get it just somewhere close, and then just use your vinyl. Like you'd be mixing with the other, with using the pitch control on the vinyl one.
Yeah.
Because that was more responsive. So but then over time, before you know it, you're not like the first thing was you go to an international gig and you're like, oh well, I'll just take CDs because it's easier to travel, and then you'd get back, and then before like a few. I don't know, I can't even remember, but like a few weeks or months go by, and then all of a sudden you're not carrying the records anymore.
Yeah.
And then, obviously now it's all USB, and yeah, it is like a strange, but it doesn't happen overnight, like it's just gradually, bit by bit, you start, moving over to these things, and I guess you just get used to it. It is nicer when you're playing on vinyl, but yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So it kind of happened gradually. And then I think there was quite a big leap so I'd sort of semi-retired from around 2012, 2013. And then when we started doing these parties again, going back into clubs, there's just no turntable, there's no CD players, everything's digital. And many of the clubs don't even have units anymore. It's just one big controller, which at first it was a bit strange, but then now I think it's amazing that it's just you have this one unit, everything is built in together, pop your USB in. You can even record your set on the other USB, so it's quite convenient. So so like you say, it didn't happen overnight. And what are your thoughts on so a lot of DJs have this debate about the sync button on this technology. So do you still like to mix using the pitch faders, or are you happy to just hit the sync button and just be more creative with your DJ sets?
Oh, I don't use the sync. No,
Okay.
that like, why am I even there if I'm using the sync? Like, what's the?
I do think that there's an element of creativity that you can do more when if you have the ability, if you own one of these things, you can get to know how to use these units and create hotkeys and do something different. It can be great, but I think for the style of music that you play, it might not make sense for you to do any of that.
No.
But we'll see on the night.
That's the thing. Like, I always thought there was some DJs that came along like back in the early days of when I was playing Insomniacs, around the time, I would have come out to Studio 47, and there were some DJs, can't even think what the names were, but they were like doing lots of, like tricks, but it's like, is it actually adding anything? And then by the time they finish fucking around with the tricks,
yeah,
they'd only got 90 seconds left on the track to mix into. So then you've just got the dead beats and the bass is dropping out. And like for me, it's like throw it in, mix for 4.5 minutes, let that track finish just as that one drops into the breakdown. I've got enough time to pick what I'm going to play next, put that on, drop it in as that one kicks back in, mix for 4.5 minutes. That's you know, that's what I like.
Yeah.
Because
I
when I used
think,
to go, when I was learning to mix, and I'd go and watch Tony DeVee or E&M or Andy Farley or Steve Thomas, these guys that I looked up to, and I'd just stand and just watch for hours. That's what they did. They
yeah.
didn't do any tricks, like it's just all a bit gimmicky. And the type of music that we play,
Mm.
I don't, it lends itself to that. Like I'm always been, you've got that track and you've got that track. And if I can make a third track by layering these two up so much,
Yeah.
that's what makes sense to me.
Yeah. And I think it does make sense, specifically, definitely in the style of music that you play. So then, when it comes to music, have you been following what labels like Fisher Circle have been doing, and Tidy, and the other bigger hard house labels? Does that music still, does the newer music still appeal to you, or are you still very much leaning towards what you know and what you were making?
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty much a classic set when I play now. Because the thing is for me, and this is what it's been like for years, every time I play, it could be the last time I ever play.
Yeah,
There's been sometimes, and obviously you've booked me for this, and I'm heading back to the UK and New Zealand later this year, so I know that I'll play again. But there's been a couple of times over the last few years where when I've been mixing, and I'm thinking this could be the last time I ever play in a club. So do I want to play the new, track that people are probably not going to remember in a year's time, or
yeah,
do I want to play the track that I was listening to back in 1998 that, lit me on fire then, and people are still into, like they still appreciate now. Like
yeah,
if I'm if it's going to be the last time I play, I want to play something worthwhile. Now,
yeah.
I'm not saying the stuff that comes out now is not worthwhile. I don't know because I don't keep up with it. But, I made a career on just turning up and playing what I like. And I was lucky enough that the fans liked it. I never played for somebody else. I always just played for myself. I may as well have just been playing in my bedroom every time. But I was lucky that people enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah. We every people who watched the last interview, they really enjoyed the story of how you when you used to be with your mates and they would be DJing, and then you went and bought decks and learned to play and came back and they were like, oh my gosh, he's really good. So there were a lot of cool stories that came out of that interview. And
Yeah, yeah,
I can tell you that the fans are really excited to see you, and that they very much do want to hear the Paul Glazby that they know. So
yeah.
there's definitely no pressure for you to play a lot of new stuff, or if you sneak any new stuff in, great. But they're coming for the Glasby sound that they know.
Yeah.
And then
Which is because that's what they're going to get.
okay, so and you have all those tracks in digital mediums. We don't need to. Do you want to play on vinyl?
No, I don't even own any vinyl. When I did my pardon me, when I did my 10-hour set, when I retired, um, back in, well, it would have been 2012 because it's Kelly was pregnant with Nevaeh while I was doing the gig, so it would have been in 2012 because she was born in the June.
Okay.
Um, and at the end of the set, so I played for 10 hours, and then at the end of the set, I gave all my vinyl away.
Wow. Okay.
Mm.
So there were
So
some
I don't own any.
lucky people who got all those finals. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a few questions now. I mean, I mind. I'm just going to read them off of my phone. These are some of the questions that some of your fans have asked.
Yep.
Okay. So Sadiq Abrahams, he would like to know, what track will you play first? Have you thought about that, or will it just be decided on the night?
I did actually think of something yesterday, but I'm not going to say it because I might change my mind by the time I get there.
Okay. Say no
So,
more. Just on that note, did you see the advertising that we did for the? I'm gonna send you the video ad. I think we sampled the vocal from Hostile with
mhm.
the and then one of the questions is from Kyle Struble. He'd like to know: did Pantera ever send their regards after the vocals in Hostile?
No,
So
disappointed. No.
what goes into something like that? Are you allowed to just sample that, or did you have to go through a process of getting it, what's the
The
word,
thing is,
approved?
no, in Hard House, the sales that we made, like if you think probably the highest selling record in Hard House history, I would imagine would be like The Dawn, turning to be The Dawn. And
Okay.
that would have sold, not including digital, but like vinyl sales. I'm pretty sure they sold between 20 and 25,000 of that.
Yeah.
It's not worth anyone suing you for it, because what or maybe that one, because that would have made, but like typically we would sell between 5 and 10,000 copies in the
Okay.
heyday. But the money you would make from that, it's not worth someone suing you for it. I mean, if someone, they could, I guess, but even if they won, it would cost them more than they would ever get back. So we were always kind of safe in that regard, that you could
Okay.
just sample shit and get away with it, because it was, even if someone cares, what they're going to do.
It's not worth a while.
Mm.
Okay.
I'll get a letter from Pantera next week.
Let's hope not. But okay, so Lukman Sidat would like to know which DJs Paul took inspiration from before he became a legend himself. So you mentioned some of those names earlier. Do you want to just give those names to us? Who were your heroes before you started?
Well, I mean, I got into Hard House because of Pete Wardman. So
Yeah,
Pete Wardman's
from Trade.
mix on Trade 4, that was just like go to, like every after party we'd get, but that'd be the first thing that we'd listen to. And we'd we'd go out on a Friday night, get home at 4:30, 5 o'clock Saturday morning, and then carry on until the early hours of Monday morning. That Trade 4 mix we probably listened to 10 times in that weekend, that.
Yeah,
And Tony DeVee live in Tel Aviv,
yeah,
that
that was
double disc,
awesome. I remember that.
amazing. But
Yeah.
the funny thing is, and I was telling someone this a couple of weeks ago, that I used to listen to those mixes and I couldn't tell where one track started and one finished. And I recently found the Pete Wardman one on YouTube, and I listened to it, I'm like,
And
fucking
now you
hell.
know,
It's,
yeah.
like it's so obvious now.
Yeah.
Back then it just sounded like one long track. I just couldn't tell, where they started and finished. So Pete Wardman, that mix was just that and the Turner V one. And then we started going out to we'd get one of my friends back in England, Andy, he started organizing coach tours to Sunday Central. So we started going there, and then we got to see Turner V, Steve Thomas, E&M. All those guys were, like the residents there, or played there a lot. So we used to not sit, like stand and watch those guys, and then we started putting some events on in Sheffield, and that's when Andy Farley started to get a bit more sort of well known, and we'd book Andy, and Andy would come and play, and I'd watch him, and then I started getting into the likes of like Karim and RR Fierce, but I never saw them play. Eventually I did, but I'd never saw them play, until we started Vicious Circle and got to know those guys better, and then we used to book them for events. Like if we were doing Vicious Circle events, then they would come and play for us, and we sort of got more immersed like that. But going back to E&M, so E&M is I think a really nice guy, but he is like a bitchy queen. So like all those guys from that sort of
Yeah.
Trade era, I think nearly all of them are gay. And like Ian, he'd always talk about other people, and that he'd be saying shit about you when you're not there. But that's just
Yeah.
how he is. Some people. The day that I did my 10-hour set, the next morning I got a text message from him. And bear in mind, this is someone that 10 years before I was like looking up to this guy. Well, I always looked up, I still do.
Yeah.
But like it was just someone I didn't know, and he was this DJ that I was just, mesmerized by. And then he sent me this text message just saying, I can't remember, I wish I'd saved it, but it was like just saying, you should be really proud of yourself, everything you've done for the scene. You've been such a big part, and no one will ever forget you. And
Wow,
you
that's
should be
great.
really. I was like nearly crying reading it, thinking, "Fucking hell, is this?"
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
I would never
Yeah.
have expected it from him, of all people. But yeah, so that was like a nice sort of thing, just that recognition from your peers as well. You didn't have to, you could have just but yeah. So Ian, if you ever hear this,
he's quite a big guy, hey? I think I've met him once. Is he a big guy?
So that guy, he's fucking massive. And the thing is as well, I always used to say, because like if you, when you meet someone, you give him, like a pat on the back, he always felt like he was made out of wood. It's like, yeah, like he'd wear like a bomber jacket, and then it's like he had a stab-proof vest on underneath or something. He was just, he always felt solid. So I don't know what kind of training he did. He used to turn up in his tracksuit bottoms and a big baggy t-shirt like he just got out of bed, and then just play this blistering set that just scared half the club to death. But yeah, I always remember like you'd sort of give him a hug, or like when because the thing is, as DJs, you don't see each other. People think that we all know each other, which we sort of do, but a lot of the time it's just you're just saying hello to someone while they unplug their headphones and you plug yours in, and then you get your headphones in, so you can't talk, and they go and they're off to another gig or whatever. So out of all the best sort of friend that I had would have been Andy Farley. He used to come to our house, and when I was doing personal training, he used to come and I'd write programs for him and show him what to do, and then he'd go off and train at home. And he was probably the best friend. Like Paul Maddox, another I used to spend a lot more time with Maddox because he lived closer. But yeah, it's like a great guy, and that guy. So the first time I ever met Paul Maddox, because these tracks were going round that people were playing, he did one called Energy at 152. So it was,
I remember,
yes.
Yeah.
Remember that one? Yeah.
Yeah. So just to give people some context, so Paul Maddox was he the in-house engineer at Tidy?
That's how we met. Well, I sort of met him a few weeks before.
Okay. And he was very young as well.
Well, he was 17 when I met him. Okay. And I would have been 23, I think, when I met him. And we were stood outside. We just finished at Insomniacs, and we came out. Obviously, Insomniacs used to finish at midday, so we were stood out in the street. Most of the people are like off the face, and I saw this guy looking at me, and he had I think it was an Elmo backpack. It's like skinny kids spots, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, "You all right, mate?" And he's like, he came over and said, "Oh yeah, I'm Paul Maddox," and he gave me these CDs.
Yeah.
I don't remember this, but he's told me this story loads of times that I just went, "You're Paul Maddox." So anyway, a few weeks later, Tidy, I think they wanted to get some experience for Maddox, so I ended up going in the studio with him there, and yeah, I mean, probably 90% of the tracks I ever did were with Maddox. Like we used to just, like have a real synergy. Like it was like a good, because some people go in the studio and they just sit reading a magazine, and then the the engineer is doing it all, and then going, "Do you like that?" And they're like, yeah, that's all right. Like that's,
oh, wow, okay.
The studio, whereas I was much more involved, which I think is why, if I went and did a track with BK, or if I went and did a track with Dynamic Intervention, or like people could still go, "That's a Glazby track," because I wasn't just leaving it up to these guys to do everything. I was involved in the process. But yeah, me and Maddox started working together. Then he left the Tidy studio and had his own studio at home, so I used to go and do everything there. But he lived literally like 3 minutes from where I live, so it was easy to get to him. Ben Stevens, obviously another freaking amazing guy that so when I said about Andy Farley, because Andy Farley was a name when I got into, he was someone that
very well known.
Yeah, obviously Maddox and Ben Stevens, they sort of came up behind me, so they're amazing guys to have been around as well. But yeah, just funny how things.
Yeah, no, that's a great story. And yeah, so we have. It's funny. I remember that track, that energy at 152. Okay, so here's another question. What's a song? Okay, you don't really produce anymore, right? So, but this question was, what's a song that you'd love to remix but are too afraid to? So I don't know if you could remix any track and you were still producing, what would it be?
I'm trying to think. There was something recently that I
Do you hear music and then you think, wow, I'd love to remix that?
not so. I think it would have been like a Depeche Mode thing,
Okay.
or maybe I think it might have been Depeche because I've been listening to them quite a bit over these last few years. But yeah, but it's funny. Like the beginning of one of their tracks, there's like this car screeching sound, and I'm sure that's the sound that Paul King used in some of his tracks. You know, like you hear the sample years later.
Yes.
Yeah, I
It's
can't
funny you
really
say that
answer.
because I can hear that sound in my head. That you that car screeching. Okay, describe the first time you ever heard Ian M. Crazy Pills. So
Well,
that was out on your label. Is that correct?
it was
Yeah.
the first edit of Crazy Pills. They had this like a big key change in it. I can't remember if the key change was straight out of the break or a bit late. I think it ran. I think it built up, kicked off, ran for a bit, and then they had this key change in it. And I'm like, guys, we can't put that out. Like it just sounds fucking gay. Like I'm so so they changed it.
Okay.
And then so yeah, the first time I ever heard it, I loved it. And then I hated it because of that key change part.
Yeah.
But fair enough, the guys, Paul Janes and Ian M. Paul Janes is another good guy. Um, yeah, they took it on the chin and they changed it, and then we put it out. But yeah, it's hard when you've got someone like that you've got to go back to, and then you know
Yeah.
tell
Sorry,
them that
guys. I like it, but I don't like it.
yeah. I mean, it was amazing, and just until that key change bit, and I'm like, I can't do it. So, because the thing is, I did a track, I can't even remember what it was called. It's one that me and Maddox engineered it, and there was a thing with the bass line. I can't even remember what it was, but I can still remember now being it's one that we did at the Tidy studio, and at the time, because I also used to sit, and Maddox used to be on my right, and the screens were like sort of in front of him. And I remember going, is that bass line right? Is it not? And I was sort of second guessing myself. And I went, no, it'll be okay. And then I fucking hated it forever. And then I knew that that's what would have happened with Crazy Pills if we just put it out.
Yeah.
Because, early on with, there are a few things. Well, not a few. I think the worst, we put that 12-inch Thumpers remix on because we had this, like, when I started getting a bit of a name for myself, 12-inch Thumpers contacted me about doing remixes for them. That's why there's some of my remixes on their label. But they were like,
Yeah.
"Oh, we won't see you. We'll just do swaps." And obviously, I just wanted to get my name out as much as I could, so I did these remixes. I think I'd done 2 or 3 for them, and then I thought, well, I'll cash in, and then but it just wasn't the Vicious Circle sound, like I think on that one as well. I think there was 2 remixes on the B side because I didn't want that one just being the only. I'm pretty sure that's right. That would have been like Vicious Circle 2, I think. The Out of Control, Andy Farley.
Okay.
I think it was a Vicious Circle 2, yeah. But yeah, so you get to you want to try and be as you want everything to be right, and sometimes you think it's right, and then later. But if you like, oh, I'm not sure, it's probably best to
Yeah. I
not.
think I know what you're talking about with the key change because Paul James, you said he worked on that track. He did the remix of Tony to Be the Dawn, and he does the same thing with that big key change, and it kind of lifts it up to make it more uplifting. And
But it works
Vicious,
in the door, perfect in
yeah,
the door. But
because it's a
in
different
Crazy Pills,
sound. But for Vicious Circle,
yeah,
no. Yeah, I get it.
no. But even for Crazy Pills, like not even like for because there's things that I put out on because I don't know if you even remember, but I can't remember what the years would have been. But we I did that 10 Commandments where I think it was like it was supposed to be 10 releases that I either did the track or the remix. So it was
Was
like
that
Vicious
on
Circle.
Nucleus?
No, on Vicious Circle. Vicious Circle
Okay.
40, 41, 42, 43,
Okay.
44.
Okay.
I ended up doing 11 consecutive tracks because I did 40 and then ended up doing 50 as well. So it was like actually 11 in a row. But yeah, the sorry, what were you just saying before?
Oh no, I just asked. I would just brought up the bass line with the thing how he used it
Oh yeah,
for
sorry,
the
yeah. So
dawn, but it
but
doesn't work for
I
vicious
went through,
circle sound. Yeah,
yeah, but then I went through a period of doing some stuff that was a bit more, trancy or uplifting. Like I did that anabolic catabolic um release. I think it was catabolic that had got a bit more of like a euphoric sound, and that wickedness, that one
I
was
remember you doing
pretty.
something on Tidy and also something on Nucleus that had a bit of a trance vibe to it. I think you did a remix with BK on Nucleus.
Oh, the BK one, that was the one that out of my house.
Yeah, that could be it.
Yeah. It's not very trancy. It's
More trancey than what we're used to for you.
oh maybe yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, so I went through a phase but I think, like I got to a point where it was like how much, hard can you do?
yeah,
And yeah, I think they still sounded like Glazby tracks, but I did do some stuff that, had some key changes and things like that in. But yeah, that Crazy Pills one just didn't, because it's such a hard track.
yeah.
It just
That's
ruined
massive.
it.
I love it. I love it. I miss that kind of music.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, like going back to when we did one from the hard box, that first album that we put out, and our record label were like, oh no, you're too, like your label's too new, no one's gonna listen to it. But we just did it anyway. And we would like, I remember I did, because I'd done the Insomnia album for Tidy, but I had to go in the studio with all the tracks, and then we sampled them all in, and then you know Lee Haslam just put them together. Like I said, oh, I want it to mix here and here, but like
Yeah.
they all the mixing was done on the computer. And then a few months later, we were doing one from the hard box, and I said to Andy Farley, I said, I'll because everybody was going digital with the mixing, and I'm like,
Yeah.
we've got to do this live, we've got to do it real. And I think I had to do mine 4 times, because every time I did it, and it was like a minute 30 too long, to fit on a CD.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do it again and adjust a couple of, try and remember where I dropped everything, and nudge it back a little bit, and then
Yeah.
I got down, I did a mix, and it ended up being like, I think it was 74 minutes you could fit on a CD, and it ended up
Yes.
being, I was recording onto a mini disc, and mini discs were longer.
Yeah.
So the mini disc would keep running, but then we wouldn't then fit on a CD. So I got to, it was like 74 minutes and 10 seconds or something. And I fucking lost my shit, threw everything around the house. And the next day, I saw the next door neighbor, and he thought I'd been knocking my missus around,
Oh my
because I
gosh.
was like, oh no, I just mixed it.
Yeah. It's funny you say so that I was thinking about it the other day. Every time I record a mix, I end up doing the mix around about 70 minutes. And then I thought to myself, like, why am I still doing this time? Because it's like you say, we used to record these mixes and it would only could only fit 74 minutes on. So now still today, even years later, where it doesn't matter, you're not putting it on a CD, you're putting it online, doesn't matter how long it is, but we're still putting this like 17-minute cap on our mixes.
Yeah, yeah.
It's strange. But listen, Paul, we're about to run out of time. Is there anything that you'd like to say to your Cape Town fans before you jump on the plane to Cape Town?
Just hope everybody comes out, has a good time. Bring your marker, because I like signing posters.
Yeah. Over 1,000 posters, yeah.
1,000 posters. But no, I'm just looking forward to seeing everybody, and hopefully there's some, familiar faces from 23 years ago.
Yeah, there will be loads. There will be loads. Awesome, Paul. Thank you so much. Thanks for this interview. And the next time I see you, we'll be at the airport to pick you up.
Awesome.
Thanks for making time for us. Cheers.
Take care. Bye, guys.